Happy New Year. It's 2023. This is the absolute first show of Dialogue with Dozy of 2023, January the 2nd. So glad that you're here tonight. And we have an exciting show for you tonight. We cannot wait until our guest pop and blesses us with a wealth of knowledge and wisdom to share to help us to make this a great new year, a great start, and put things together to be successful. Tell us. Go ahead, put it in the text. How was your new year? How were your holidays? Well, we'll be asking you shortly when more sign on. We want to know how your holidays were. How were they? We're going to ask some of these questions and give comments, some of these comments along with this as we ask, as our guest shares with us. She's a guest, first time with the dialogue. We're so happy that she's on tonight. But she is a member of our production team, GoGigaCreations.com. And let's not waste the time. Your boy KB probably won't be here tonight. He was down. If you've been looking at social media, he was down here with us until this morning, and he's pretty wiped out when we spoke earlier. So we'll give him the night off if he's not able to make it. Dr. T, what says thee?
I'm just glad to be here, Mr. Dozy. Thank you for the gracious invite to be over here to talk about it tonight. So thank you for the invite.
We're just so great that you are here. I've heard you spoken of, and I don't know why between Madam Producer and myself it's taking us this time, but just slap on the wrist, bad Dozy, be better in 2023.
All time is good time. All time is good time. Always happens at the in the appropriate season. So maybe it's just because we needed to get here to this new year before I came on. So if that is the case, then here I am.
I'm loving this speak of providential positivity already. Doc, tell Dozell a little bit about yourself, so we'll know what we're in for. Y'all get ready. I think it's going to be takeoff time tonight.
Well, my background is in education. I served all the way up to the level of area superintendent. Love kids, love working with kids. I'm a small business coach, which I love working with people who are new to newer entrepreneurs who are trying to really get their business off the ground, finding the correct resources, not spending a lot of money, and making sure they're just on the right track. Got a little minister in me. So, well, I got minister in me, but hopefully I won't get a little preachy on you, Mr. Dozy, tonight. Hail from California. I live in Atlanta, Georgia right now, and I'm just glad to be able to use my voice to hopefully positively impact people as we get started with this new year here in 2023. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Doc. I got to say this to you. Um, we got kudos to you and all of the good people of the state of Georgia for making the right decision on a particular recent election when we see a catastrophe about to occur tomorrow in the House of Representatives. Um, we've been looking all weekend. Unfortunately, we should be enjoying the holidays and everything. We've been looking at a member of that other party that has told falsehoods, as my mother used to tell us to say. You couldn't use the words. He told a whole boatload of falsehoods, and he has a whole boatload of agencies uh, investigating him right now because of said. And gosh, it would have just been an absolute shame. Well, I mean, it was last election, and I know we didn't hear the talk politics tonight, but the last election would have been, had it gone differently, it would have been a shame on two sides. It would have been an absolute shame to pass on a qualified, proven candidate like Senator Warnock. I think y'all call him Pastor Senator Warnock, for Dr. Senator Warnock for what he has already done for the basic 2-year term that he served. He actually proved himself, and he proved that he could work across party lines and just be an American. And even for that election to be close was horrific, but that's all right. The
We
right
shouldn't have
thing
even,
happened.
it shouldn't have even, Mr. Dozy, and I don't want to get off into that tangent, but I think about what obviously all the information that was put out there. And I think that what concerned me the most was we had a proven reverend that had already been serving, right? That's always been doing things. And we had someone else who just did not appear as qualified as going of who he was going against. And that's just this. Now this is me being real nice about it. And I just I don't I'm trying to peel back and understand some of the truth behind why someone would go to the ballot box, and it was still 1.5 million people that voted for the other candidate. It just boggles my mind. But you know what? Senator Warnock prevailed, and that's what it should have been. Shouldn't have had to come to a runoff. It did. But you know, sometimes I think people hate parties more than they hate logic, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
parties more than they hate the sensibility of things that happen, track records and all that type of stuff. So it's unfortunate, but we are here and we put the right person in office. So I'm glad about that.
amen, amen, amen. Yeah, the diversity of Georgia now becoming, at the very least, a purple state with a Jewish American in the U.S. Senate and an African American. This would really enthuse Dr. King if he was able to see this. Doc, I'm a retired educator, a recently retired educator, and if you hear me say retired many times, it's because I'm so excited about the retirement lifestyle. But my kids gave me, they made me step my golf game up. They gave me they gave me a new set of golf clubs, bags. They just threw them, just said, "There, get what you need." And so until a certain little volunteer situation that I've got myself into the last year. I was on that golf course at least 3 days a week. I'm gonna pick that back up shortly. But Doc, tell us a little bit about your education, and we're just doing some preliminary to get into tonight's discussion.
So you said my education that's pertinent to tonight's discussion?
No, no, no. We're gonna. This is just we're still doing some just background before we get into tonight's
You
discussion.
know, I spent the majority of my tenure in education in California. I spent the latter part last year in Houston ISD, which is where I was an area superintendent. When I got into education, um, and as I began to see the disparities in kids, you know, from low SES, or for the folks that don't know what that is, the low socioeconomic um, areas versus the more affluent areas, I actually chose specifically to be in low income areas because I thought it was important for kids that look like me to see someone that looked like them, right? And that I can be tough but fair, and I can demand excellence at the same time from my students. And I turned down job interviews at places where it wasn't low socioeconomic status. I had some of the top test scores in the district that I work with. I every now and then get a message from one of the students that was one of my students from years ago. I mean, folks in their 30s and doing things, and it was a love of mine. I'm going to tell you the side that was always a challenge, Mr. Dozell, was the politics and the bureaucracy. I never did well with it. I never did well with that side. I never did well with um, the politics. I remember telling them, if you guys want to have one more meeting about what we should do, and you're gonna do one more poster, and that's all you're gonna do, don't call me no more, because y'all really don't want to fix many of the problems,
Wow.
because I'm a problem fixer. I don't want to just stir it up. Don't if for example, if most of my African American girls are the ones getting the fights, for example, then if I put together a program for African American girls, don't tell me that some of my Asian boys need a program, because they're not the ones that had a problem, right? And then we begin to, when we want to go towards fixing the problem, oftentimes people want to talk about the fairness of things, and or the equity of things, and all things that are fair and that doesn't always seem like they're equitable, but it's necessary. But I loved the work that I did in education. On the dark side of administration is where you see, that's the side that broke my heart more than anything. That's the side that broke my heart, because there's a lot of moral corruption. Forget legal and illegal. It's just there's a lot of moral corruption, and it broke my heart. And I was done with it. I got finished with it, and but I am an educator at heart, which is why I still coach. Right? I coach folks with small businesses, and I decided, my decision. I remember it distinctly. I said, as I began to talk about coaching, and because my background is education, I said, why don't I coach people in education? I would do leadership, I do classroom management, I do those sorts of things. And I said, I was tired of trying to work with people who wasn't convinced the sky was blue. What do you mean by that? If you don't believe that you need help, I'm not trying to convince you. I only wanted to work with people who wanted to be worked with. Therefore, I chose to be somewhere where somebody wants to say, no, I need help. And so if you're raising your hand to say you need help, I'm your girl. But I'm not there to try to convince somebody that they need help. I don't care how much help you need. So that was kind of what my background was. I loved it, loved it, loved it. But it was time to kind of move to another area, move to a different area.
Well, speaking of some of these different areas, I was just commenting on what you're saying. Um, as this retired educator, and I just love what I heard you say about you wanted to work in the lower. Um, uh, what's the abbreviation?
SES, the
SES. That's
poor
right.
folks, the poor folks.
Right. I think it took me. I was the last on the totem pole. This is about my fourth career. Education was about my fourth career. So I was last on the totem pole in most buildings that I worked for a while anyway. And I went on vacation and came back expecting to walk into a job and learn that I had been bumped. And there was a job at the school that had opened, and I went back to the principal and just basically fell just short of begging her. This was like 2 days before school started. I begged her to rehire me, and she said, "Well, there's other opportunities out here. They're gonna put you somewhere, maybe on the other side of town. Why do you want to be here so bad?" And without thinking about it, I said, "Because my calling is to serve in hood schools." I mean, that
Yeah,
might not be the right term, but she knew what I meant, and she went right in there and did my paperwork. So I think there has to be that connection, and we've got to know what and anything that we're doing, we've got to know what our calling is, and
right.
and pursue that calling. So, Doc, we want to talk tonight about being successful in 2023. Um, and by the way, to our audience, you saw me looking down. I was just back and forth with KV. He hadn't even made it home. He said the traffic has been horrific. He left here early today, real early, and he said the traffic has been horrific, and he just kind of chill out. So he won't be with us, in other words, but he'll be back with us on next week. Look at his Facebook page. We've had a great time this weekend. He and his lovely wife Donna always make holidays, special days, because they like to come down, and we love having them. So, Doc, as we look at 2023, what are some of the ways that we need to prepare ourselves to be successful in 2023?
Okay, well, again, I might be coming in hot, and I'm gonna step on some toes. I'm gonna tell you. I want to start by telling you what not to do, and that's some of the stuff that you did in 2022.
That's all right.
Some of the times, what happens is we're about talk. We're about a rhyme. I don't know what the rhyme is with 2023. They'll come up with something. We're about this feel good notion of coming into the year, but it doesn't have sustainability. It's something gym memberships make their most money in the first 3 months of the year. It's because people start talking about, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do these things with my physical health. And, and, and then they're saying, they watched this though. They bought the clothes, they got them for Christmas. They was under the tree, they opened them up. They got every single piece of everything they needed. But watch this. My question is, how many of you actually exercise on New Year's Day, even though it was a Sunday and that was the first? I know I did.
Wow.
Because we're talking about who's really true in the game. And then how many of you exercise today, and because it's generally a day off, because it's being the first is being observed today. There's the difference. It's those people who are allowing excuses to stand in front of them because they want the easy way out. I'm going to tell you what, preparing for success. I said it I said this in a talk I did. Preparing for success is going to be doing things you don't want to do. It's going to be feeling ways you don't want to feel. It's going to be conquering battles you don't want to conquer, talking to people you don't want to talk to. That's what it's going to be about. And if you think this thing is about comfort, I'm going to tell you what, stay in your current job. That I said it, deal with it. You might want to just stay in your current job, because those of us who are out there really trying to be successful, you're going to have to do things that are not comfortable, and you're going to have to do some things different. That's all that I said is just number one. You got to do some things different.
Yeah,
That's where I start at.
I mean, okay, let's break that down. Isn't that really what people are coveting to with themselves, to with themselves to do when they say I'm going into the gym? You heard our pre-production comment. You heard me telling Toya some things that I've got to do to become healthier, and that I've committed myself to them. Um, but isn't that? I mean, don't we go into these? I don't even want to use the term resolutions, but we go into these promises to ourselves and to others, uh, knowing that it's gonna be a different narrative for our lifestyle. Don't we understand
Well,
it? And
the
it's gonna
short answer
always
is yes.
involve discomfort.
I call them New Year's lie illusions. I call them New Year's lie illusions, because we're lying to ourselves, because what we haven't done is put together something that is, again, the word is sustainable. And then what we do is we try to attack something that's too big for us to attack. For
Mm,
example, I use the analogy of working out. Some of us will buy all the stuff, get the gym membership, start taking the top end classes, and then you soar for 2 or 3 days, and then you're done, right? Or you
yeah.
hurt something, right? You used to be an athlete, or you haven't been working out for a long time, and you just go in at the top, as opposed to saying, let me just start by walking 15 minutes 5 days a week. Let me just start right there. Let me start where we need to start. We are a microwave generation for many folks, and you want something fast instead of taking the time to that is really going to need to get there. And I'm going to tell you what, I've been guilty of it myself. I realized, Mr. Dozy, at the end of the year, I really had to have a conversation with myself and recognize that I'm a sprinter by nature. I'm a sprinter in everything that I am, everything that I do. But I realize that greatness takes time. And so if greatness takes time, but I'm a sprinter, something has to give, because either I'm going to keep sprinting and it's not sustainable, or I'm going to stop sprinting, lay the right foundation, take my time, and know that this thing is just going to do exactly that. Take time. That's what I believe it has to be. Is we have to get into this mindset of saying, maybe this month I only see a loss of 4 pounds. Maybe I only see a loss of 2 pounds. But then it don't work. Yes, it does, because that's what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. Right. But we just have the wrong mindset, because we're this microwave generation, and we want things fast, as opposed to the sustainability and the stick to itiveness that we need. So no lie illusions for me.
Okay, so now I think that's a good takeoff point, to be realistic in the promises that you make to yourself. Be realistic, and be honest with yourself, and because anything else almost to me is a setup. It sounds just like a setup for failure. That was a great analogy. You start working out, you go to the gym, work out on the treadmill for an hour and a half, and then you do other things, and then you're sore for a week, and you say, "The heck with it," you give it up. What are some of the what are some good attainable things that individuals should consider as lifestyle changes to start a new year?
Um,
You notice I'm staying away from the word resolutions.
I want to give you one thing that I think is easy. Is I think that we have to be about putting good information inside of us. So what I mean, for those of you who love to read, I think you should read. If you don't like to read, get Audible and listen to some stuff, because I believe that you have to put good information in you. I believe it was Dr. James Clearly's book, Atomic Habits, and the reason why to me that book was so profound is one of the books that I read. My goal last year was to read 52 books. I read almost 60, and it was one of the
Wow.
ones that I loved. And it was talking about the small habits to get to your success. It is the small things that you can put in place. So, for example, if you just start out walking, you don't have to start out walking fast. You don't have to start out breaking a sweat. You don't have to start out with the best, $200 shoes. You have to start. That to me, the idea of starting is problematic for many people. And I believe you just have to start. And don't let the naysayers talk about, well, where you're not really doing anything. In that book, it talked about, Dozell talked about this gentleman who wanted to start working out. And he said what he had to first start doing is going to the gym. So he would put his clothes on, drive to the gym, stay there for 5 minutes, and leave. He kept doing it. He said, because I just got to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get there. I'm going to stay for 5 minutes and I'm going to leave. And then he started saying, well, shoot, if I'm here, I may as well work out. But there was power in the beginning. There was power in that. And what we need to do is say, I'm going to start drinking more water. Cut out the sweet crap and drink some water. Get to sleep on time. I'm trying to help the people in the back, Dozell. I'm trying to help the people there. And again, these are simple things, but watch this. Our bodies, our minds, our emotions, our spirituality have begun to crave this culture that is not good for us anymore. And it is a trick of the enemy in and of itself. People think that the drinking and smoking and cussing is a trick of the enemy. That's the easy stuff. Stay off of Facebook. Woo! Stop scrolling on Instagram. Stop drinking sweet stuff all the time. Stop having cookies right before you go to bed at night. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's where a lot of the trick is. And we have to really take an honest look. We lie to ourselves too much. I try not to lie to myself. I admit that you wrong right there. You're wrong, because that's really where I believe that some of that introspection starts.
I was sitting here wondering, how were you going to, and you don't have to do it like this, because we're just going to ask some very pointed and specific questions about spirituality. But I was just wondering, how were you going to weave spirituality into the conversation? That is a great. I mean, I hope everybody gets that. She says, um, we think it's the stuff, it's the big stuff out there that we point fingers at. It's like stuff like harming your own body, not taking care of the temple that has been given to us. Well, wait a minute, this is my show. I don't have to say it like this. The temple that God has given us, that we're able to glorify Him with. How can we talk about improving my spirituality, my positivity, my outlook when I'm walking around having just gained 55 pounds over 3 months because I don't have the discipline to back away from cokes or whatever, you know? So I think that's a very, just stepping away from. So I just love that example. What was the name of that book again? Just driving to the gym.
Atomic Habits. And watch this, Mr. Dozell. We will see people going to the edifice of the temple, the building, serving. I mean, you in the choir, you on the usher board, you one of the deacons or deaconesses, you're on the praise team, you're doing this, and you are dedicated to the edifice that's the temple. And then you leave there and you go to McDonald's and you're not taking care. And because we think that sometimes it's that building that's the temple. But as you said, this is the first temple. And I'm not asking everybody to go vegan like I did. I'm not asking people to don't drink soda. I stopped drinking soda when I was 19 years old. Well, excuse me, when I was in high school, 17 years old. I'm not asking people to do those types of things. I'm not asking. I'm saying take an account of where you are and begin to make a change. Take an account of where you are and begin to make a change. Let me say this, Mr. Dozell. When I was in high school, I had a lot of friends that were Catholic, and although I'm not Catholic, I liked practicing Lent. Right, I like practicing Lent because I think it's a great practice. Giving up something for the 40 days before, so on and so forth. And it was always about when you think about when people say give up that, and you're like, ooh, I don't want to get that up. That's the thing you should give up.
Yeah,
that's always it. That's always it. If you have a sweet tooth and someone I tried to challenge my godson to give up sweets for a week and he almost cussed me. He was like, I
Wow.
can't do that, Monty. I can't. You know, because we already know what our vices are. We already know
Yes,
what they are.
yes,
And
yes.
again, if we're about taking care of the temple, I think we have to take some honest looks at that. That to me is some of the starts of success for the new year.
I think that's just awesome, and it's almost as if you heard us talking in the pre-production about what we're going to do. But I think that does start there. How can you go out and do other things if the you? And unfortunately, um, I made a decision today to keep. I'm so glad that Madam Producer brought you on because I needed this kind of energy tonight after what happened, what I was made aware of earlier today, and in the mode that it left me in. Um, I think us this temple thing. I'm kind of stuck there because um, I think I just love the way you said the simplicity. Okay, driving to the gym, or before you start talking about going and spending an hour in the gym, how about 15 minutes doing some calisthenics at home? I mean, it's just the simplicity, and I think that's a principle that can go over to every lifestyle change that we're talking about making. And I tell you one thing you've already said that has inspired me tremendously. At some point, I'm going to be begging you to come back on with us with Coach Curtis, who was going to be here today, whose voice failed him. He's had a cold. But I mean, really, you talked about, you say 56 books, that's a book a week, and you read north of 60 books. So you have inspired me. I've got to do 60 books. I mean, I've got to do 12 books. That's not inconquerable. And that has to happen. I'm so glad I heard that challenge. And the other side to that is, uh, I mean, you know how inspiration, or in the spiritual community, we say how the Holy Spirit leads us. There are several books. There was even a movie that I probably would almost have to use a surname because of the content of it. All of that's in my spirit to get done. So I'm going to take this conversation tonight and covenant to myself to read at least 12 books, and also to read, and that's a low bar, but I'm going to do it, and also to finish this book. I'm going to say in the first quarter, but really I'm going to finish it in the first month. I just want to thank you for that inspiration. Doc, you ready to go to break? We'll take a short break and come back.
Whenever you are, sir.
Got to pay these bills. All right. Uh, our sponsors got a word to say to us today. Hey, Miss Charlene, it's so good to see you on tonight, and everybody's on the dialogue, and some of you are over on YouTube. Bless you. Uh, I want to give Madam Producer. I want to give her a massive shout out because she helped me to turn this motor thing around today. I got some horrible news this morning, and just was in shambles mentally, and just grateful to her for helping me. Because of that, we got a dang dog tonight. Uh, I know. Hey, don't judge me, y'all. Today is the ignominious first anniversary of Antonio Brown's meltdown at MetLife Stadium in Flushing Meadows, New York, right outside New York City, on last year. Antonio, who had just won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady, who brought him on board, and and halfway through last year, he was just besides himself about a multiplicity of issues, and unfortunately, with him, it's always little small things. In the middle of a game, when his coach demanded him to go into the game, I think that's what they paid him to do, to play ball. When he demanded him to go into the game, AB became agitated, and on the sideline, he started peeling off his clothing. As you can see, that's what's left. no shirt. He actually pulled off his game pants, and he has those shorts on, all those okay. And he ran into the locker room, stopping under the goal pole to salute the crowd. Just unbelievable. He because of where they were located, the Jets. I mean, where Tampa Bay was located, he had to run across the field, make a spectacle of himself, go change his clothes officially, get into the car, exit the locker room, and hop on an Uber. AB, dang dog, what were you thinking? A year later, we're looking back at it. Well, what we had hoped, bro, was that things would have improved. Maybe stepping in your mind that you had to do some other things would have helped you. But dang dog, it didn't happen. Here's what really happened. You walked hand in hand with our dear brother, Ye, and you attempted a rap career that lasted about 2 seconds. I don't think you made too much money off of that. And AB, you sat by and watched him as his life began to help meet challenges because of some stances that he took. But dang, dog, we didn't hear anything positive from you. The very next thing we started hearing about you after your failed rap career was that you started hating on the very man who had given you every opportunity to turn your life around, and that was Tom Brady. And guess what, dog? I'm not a big Tom Brady fan. He is the GOAT, I guess. I hate on him. I'll just say that. But he gave you an opportunity in New England where you worked, where he had to convince the eternal Gronk, Bill Belichick, to give you a shot at it. Belichick gave you a shot. You lasted all but 2 weeks, I think, after verbally insulting the owner of all people. And then when the GOAT relocated to Tampa Bay, you were one of the first people that he brought in. And guess what? You stayed in his house. Dang, dog. Then after all of this craziness started happening, and you walked away from the football field, you walked out of your house, and all of these things, what you ended up doing was insinuating that you were having an affair with the man's wife. Because in a moment of excitement, you guys hugged after winning the Super Bowl, and you made more of it, and you continue to go down that trend. Dang, dog, listen, it's beyond me to make fun of you. I'm hoping that at some point somebody will help you. It ain't happened yet. Up until recently, Tampa's finest were parked outside of your house, front and back, because of a warrant that was on you for assaulting one of your former girlfriends. I think she said in the warrant that you hit her in the ponytail with an object that you threw at her, and then you assured the Tampa Bay police that you weren't coming out. I think this was resolved in some way after about a 2 week standoff. Dang, dog. Hey, AB, you need help, bro. Go get that help. There's help for you. No more fun what we make of you. We're just trying to inspire you. Get the help that you need. And if you really want to be that leader, you really want to be that guy that stands out, lead others because of your celebrity and because of the great athlete, the awesome wide receiver that you were. Show others that help is available and don't be ashamed to go out and get the help. Antonio Brown, dang dog, let's hear something positive about you, bro. That's a nice name, dog. So we've been too serious. We've been giving a lot of shout outs. We need to give AB just a little reminder from the show. Dr. T, you probably mad at me because you probably said I shouldn't have done that to AB. Doc, what?
Oh no, I do a show called Trash Talk. So
Oh,
AB,
wow.
he needs help. I was ready to talk about it if you wanted to talk about it. But anyway, we can keep going.
Well,
But no,
no.
I have no problem with AB.
So we're talking about how to be successful in the new year. What would you like to see him do? What's some of the things? Because there's somebody that's not listening live now, but will be listening, and what you say will help them at some point.
You said, what does Antonio Brown need?
Yeah, what would you like to see him do?
He needs Jesus. That's who.
Oh,
That's
we
what he
know
needs.
that.
He needs Jesus. In the Old Testament, the oftentimes the children of Israel, they had a king, and then the king was leading them, and then the king went to the wrong side, and then the children of Israel left God, and then the guy got mad and he punished the children. And then they said, give us a king. And so God gave him another king, and that king did the same thing. He was living for God, and then he wasn't living for God. And then the people went away, and then they said, we needed a king. Well, you asked for a king. We created Antonio Brown. The media created him. So if you took someone who had a vulnerable personality in the first place, that his crack cocaine, and watch what I'm saying, I don't mean that, I mean that metaphorically. His crack, it was attention. His high was the media. His drug is attention. And we gave him attention, and we pumped him up in attention, and he's been a great football player. And then the same people that said that Jesus was king later yell, crucify him. So then what happens is the media turns against Antonio Brown. So then how do you take someone who had a vulnerable personality, whose high was attention, and then he does something that we don't like, you snatch it away from him, and he still wants to have it, he's a fish out of water. We created that. And there's Antonio is not going to, it's very hard. What we got to do is we got to pray for him, because it's going to take the people that he listened to that's got to tell him that he needs the help that he needs. That to me is a reality. And oftentimes, unfortunately, sometimes people got to hit rock bottom. But you know what? Antonio Brown wasn't the one before. Who came before him? Ocho Cinco, Terrell Owens. We could go down the line of people who acted in much of the same way before their career was over. And that's just football.
Well, I don't want to contradict you, but I just want to ask
Please
you.
contradict me. Please.
Well, I mean, you said we created AB. AB, so he's right down the street from us. He actually resides, well, I think he's over in Hillsborough now, but he's from originally down here in South Florida, lived in Hollywood. Before he ever got to his first school, he messed up, and then he was kicked out. You know, with his talent, he could have been at the best football powers in the world, and it kept getting diminished. And if you're good enough, the NFL is going to find you. They found him. He could he have been in a better situation than playing for a black coach with Mike Tomlin, and for him to go in there and film the post game. I mean, that was like the ultimate betrayal. This coach thinks he's having a conversation with his intimate conversation with his players. He takes that and puts it on IG. How do we make him do this? It looks like he's just been
Okay,
imbalanced.
you said you actually answered my question. You said before he got there, he was messing up, right?
Right.
So if he was already messing up, why did somebody give him the chance solely based on his talent? Because he was already messing up.
Well, Doc, you know this is America, right? You know this
So I
is
say we created him. There's my
capitalism.
point. Prove my point.
Yeah. So
because at some point you have to say no. At some point you have to be willing. I was Mr. Dozell. I was an athletic director, and I coached the boys at a continuation high school. I coached the boys basketball team, and we were playing one day, and I felt like there were only 4 players playing. So you know what I did? I put 4 players on the court. I said, the rest of y'all don't want to play? You can sit down right here next to me. The ref went out and he started counting them. And he said, he was saying the one to play. Where's your other? The player looked at him and said, don't say nothing, man. Don't say nothing, man. If only 4 of you want to play, then I'm going to play 4. We have gotten into a position where the talent that you have will supersede anything, because it's the money, it's the Super Bowl, it's all these things, and we create that. At some point, somebody has to say enough is enough. Tom Brady, like you said it perfectly. Tom Brady kept calling and kept calling. You already knew he was a walking time bomb. He's been a walking time bomb. He didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Watch this, because his unordinary is ordinary.
Wow.
This is what he does. Antonio been doing this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so if we translate to another genre, Antonio Brown, who is it? Elon Musk that now owns Twitter and has exhibited the same eccentric behaviors in trying to run that social media network. Uh, but what is it? I mean, now he's getting some rejection. I mean, some kickback because of his craziness. But I mean, do we just put up with it? It's the rich and powerful, or rich and famous. Uh, we will
No,
allow
those
it.
are, in my opinion, those are just the ones we hear about.
Right.
This is this is this happens all the time, and what we do is we focus on those who are way out there. We focus on the ones that are really loud with it. And we want to keep the news in their face, and they just feed off of that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, everybody got to talk to the king. Everybody has to account for what they did. And I say, for me, at the end of the day, was God pleased with what I did? At the end of the day, was God pleased with what I did? And that for me is where it is. And I don't think enough of us are having those types of conversations. It's not, it's those who are super uber wealthy, and there are many of them that are trying to do many of the right things, many good things, but that's not sexy in the news, right? There's a documentary on YouTube called Billions in Change, and it's the CEO of Monster Drink that does it. And the Billions in Change is about changing the world, and donates the majority of his money to make changes in the medical field in third world countries, and with kids, with food, because that's what he's positively do. But that's not sexy. Antonio Brown is sexy in the news. Elon Musk, that's sexy in the news. And so we don't, it's just about how the media plays. And that's been happening since forever. And that's one of the things, as a super side note, that Go Giga Creations wants to change. But that's just me being just giving us a
So
shout out.
So this is not, yeah, well, no, do that. This is what so this leads right into this whole thing of spirituality, and that we exploit people, and really, you really almost convicted me, because maybe that should not have been maybe he should not have been a subject of humor. But at the end of the day, I'm saying, man, get help. Please get help. He has denied a need for help. And instead of us exploiting individuals, we ought to be more about helping
Did you
people.
hear me say I do a segment called Trash Talk? I did.
Right.
There is. I've talked about Antonio Brown and nauseum. I love the segment that you did, um, because it's like, come on, AB, come on, you like, come on, but he did it to himself. He did it to himself. So you good with that?
So, Doc, what? And we're a month away from, and I mean, we're gonna hit some hot and heavy. My brother and I did some planning. We're gonna do some hot and heavy shows, African American. We're not just gonna pat our successes on the back. We're gonna challenge each other to get better. What can we do as a people to improve in this year, and how can we do it?
That's such a that's such a heavy question, because I think that we're, in a lot of respects, we're not even on the same page. If you think about the civil rights time, we had a leader. We had whether you were listening to um, Dr. King, or whether you were listening to El Haj Malik El Shabazz, otherwise known as Malcolm X, um, there were leaders. There were leaders that people could go towards. Um, we're in a place where uh, technology and false narratives are so prominent. We don't have any um, we don't have enough leaders, I don't think. And I think that there are people who are trying to do some things, but I think that we're just too divided as a people. So I think I would kind of flip it. This is the one thing that I said along years ago to myself. I used to be one of these people that said, I'm doing a world takeover tour, right? I want to impact the entire world. But I learned as I got older that my job is to impact my part of the world. If God has given me the voice to speak to millions, then my job is to impact those millions I'm supposed to speak to. If my job is to impact the 2 or 3 children that are in my house, because you never know if that young man or that young woman will grow up to be a king or a queen of something, then our job is to impact them. If I was put in a particular job, maybe I don't even like that job, but people see the spirit of God oozing off of me and I'm impacting change, then that's what it is that I need to do. So I think that while I think it's going to be more challenging for us collectively to do something. I think that if we all keep our eyes on the prize and if we all understand what our impact is supposed to be, and we do it to the best of our abilities, and I believe God will say, well done. I believe that's what will change the world. If I change my part of the world, if you change your part of the world, if your daughter change her part of the world, and all of our people change our part of the world, we will change the world. That's how we change the world. That's what it is that we have to do.
So, excuse me. I preached a sermon yesterday entitled "First Things First: Seek ye first Kingdom God of all and all of His righteousness. These things will be added unto you." Do you think we have a problem of setting with prioritizing as a whole?
I don't think that I think that there's a problem with prioritizing, but I don't think that's the problem, if that makes sense. I think the problem is we are so big. This is what I call it. We are professional plate spinners. Many of us are so busy spinning plates. We spin a plate of job, we spin a plate of husband, we spin a plate of wife, we spin a plate of kids, we spin a plate of giving to the church, to the community, we spin a plate of writing a book, we spin a plate of a business, 3 or 4 different types of business. And what we do is when we think we are good, it's because we are we're balancing a lot of plates really, really well. And the problem is I think that that's a trick of the enemy, that we're working to be professional plate spinners, because to me, the real goal is to put down the plates. Because if you put down the plates, then you can get to what you just said of prioritizing. But we're so inundated with doing so many different things that we don't actually know that's just a smoke screen for the problem in the first place. So it's like a problem before the problem. And I think that and watch this, a lot of it is because we're living above our means. A lot of it is because we're spending stuff on stuff that we don't need to spend money on. A lot of it is that we have a lack of discipline for the things that we need to be doing. A lot of that stuff is going on, and we don't want to challenge ourselves to be a better version of ourselves. I want to be the best version of myself. I don't want to be the version of myself 4 years ago. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person, because if I end this year 2023 and I'm in the same place, then what did I do for this year? Then what did I impact? If people that are listening to you and I, if their lives are not fundamentally better from hearing our voices, then what are we talking for?
Wow. Wow.
So then I think that we have to get rid of a lot of these smoke screens and a lot of these things that are causing us to not really see what we really need to be doing to make that impact. And I think that once we're able to do that, clear out the smoke, put some plates down, stop doing so much, sit down, look at why you're really hurting, maybe you need some therapy, maybe you need some counseling, maybe something like that. Get some things together, and then I think we can start looking at really what the problem is. So that's
that is awesome. I want to ask you, and I know, Madam Producer is already asking, and possibly at the end of the show. But do you have a book out?
I don't have a book out right now. I have a book, but that book was a while ago. I don't. You know what? I have been being dealt with writing a book and dealt with writing a book, but I think that I am glad that I haven't done it yet, because I say, Mr. Dozell, just because you can do something don't mean that you should, right? And I think that I want to wait on God's timing, because I believe that if you walk outside the timing of God, is worse than had you not heard from him to begin with. Right. And so I don't want to walk outside of his timing just because I can, just because I have the ability to. I want to make sure that the book that I write is the right book to write. And that I think that comes with the right season. And so I'm trying to make sure that I'm paying attention to that.
To all things, there's a season. There's a time for everything, Doc. And I think that's so essential. Uh, Part of what I said yesterday was that we have to know how to get in front of God. We have to get in God's way, and when you do that, He reveals seasons and times and priorities, and all of those things are put together. I want to ask you kind of a theological question,
Yes, sir.
and it's kind of slightly off topic, but why would I have a great mind and a great theological mind and not capitalize? Um,
Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. I'm just wondering, what do you see as the move of God with 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 the church, as far as being what we think to be post-pandemic? I know pastors that were killing themselves preaching 7 times on a weekend because the churches were just so big. They went out and built cathedrals, and the pandemic came, and now they're having a hard time getting people back into the buildings. What do you see as God's move with all of this?
I think that that's such a great question. Hmm. My pastor yesterday preached a sermon, and in the sermon he was talking about what we talking about, Gideon, I think it was, and he was saying, he told him he had 30,000 with him, and then he told him, send 22,000 of them home, and so on and so forth down to 300. And he said the reality is that you really only had 300 to begin with. The other ones were just what you thought that you had. And I think that oftentimes we're growing past ourselves, and we're growing past what God is talking. It's right now. I think that God's move is for us to get back to really hearing what He's trying to tell the church. I think that people have to get better at pivoting with what it is that we're doing. We have to look at what we were doing and the manner in which we were doing it, and make some shifts. I'm sad to hear that there have been a lot of churches that couldn't pivot, that just couldn't, they just couldn't make the pivot. You couldn't make the pivot. You couldn't figure out how to put the doggone thing online because people are staying at home. You can't figure it out. That's one of the things that we're trying to do with Go Giga, is to make sure that many of these places have a voice with Faster to be able to be on television and still speak to the hearts of their people. But I think that we haven't pivoted. But watch this. If a pandemic was enough to almost single-handedly destroy the churches, we shouldn't have been
Mm.
built in the first place. I said and deal with it.
Wow,
Shouldn't have been built in the first place.
wow,
It,
wow.
it shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen.
So I think a key thing I just heard was, if people are staying home, then make the online experience, make it work, make it happen.
Did
Now
it?
in doing so, and I know some pastors said, okay, you have gotten so used to being pajama parishioners. I'm going to cut it off this week, and we'll show it later on for our homebound people, but. For the most part, you're not going to get the benefit of a live broadcast because it's become too convenient for. And you know what's really frustrating, is I kind of followed a particular pastor who I thought was a model. He kept people out of the building, and he really didn't open the building up until uh, like the latter part of last year, and he did it very methodically, very carefully. And once he did it, and as he went to expand it, the expansion never came back. And at least he's not like a pastor that's down in South Florida that just built a monstrosity of a building and people are not coming. But how do you mobilize people for service in this manner? And,
I
and,
think
and here's my qualifier. We came together. We initiated our ministry as a church without walls, and so that's really what we are now. We left our building, and we're meeting in a motel a couple of Sundays out the week. But what we did was came together on Zoom and planned an outreach ministry to our unhoused populations, and what a blessing, what an absolute blessing it was. Many of my members, they were just like reduced to tears, and I have just been down in that area ministering there in a different way So, I know what they experience. So, how do we mobilize our people to say, okay, that's service. We got to do it.
You know what? I think we have to. I think that we do have to continue. Okay, so let me back up. The lay of the land is social media. We don't have to like it. You don't have to like it, but if you want to get the saints, you're gonna have to figure out how to use it. That's just the way that it is. I didn't make the rules. The rules were made without us. And watch this. Almost nothing can survive. It. Let me rephrase. It is difficult for big any type of organization to survive a 2 year out. 2 years of being out.
Mm.
It is very, very challenging. Watch as many corporations pivoted to telecommuting, right? They were like, look, you can't come in. What do we do? Do we bills got to be paid? People got to be serviced. So they let people telecommute, right? We have to do more. And I think that we have to get creative with the way that when we come into churches, we have a lot of, especially here in the South, we have a lot of the greeters, and they're happy, and they're here. What happened to the days back in the day where if you didn't come to church, Sister so and so would give you a call. Where you been, Sister Richardson? We haven't seen you. Where is that outreach that's happening, right? That you the old school phone tree. You responsible for these 10 saints. You got
Mm-hmm.
them. The sick and shed in list. We're expecting people to just come, and we're not doing some of the. We might have to go back to some old traditions where we are reaching out to people who've been on the roll and nobody is talking to them. We love to see you. We love to have you back here. We have to have different things, different types of events, I think, to really begin to draw the crowd, because but again, this is not new. It's a when Moses went up to get the 10 commandments, the people built the calf.
Right,
He was
right,
gone for what, 40 days? Come on
right,
now.
right.
Not 2 years. He was gone for 40 days. He came back and they had a calf. We thought you was gone. We thought you was caught up. Fickle saints. I said it. We got fickle people. And so we have to know that. We got a lot of young people, and not all saints are fickle. I get that. And some people are afraid to be in that kind of proximity, but we have to do a better job with connecting with them, letting them know where we are, letting them know how they can connect. But it has to be a person to person. I know we have to go. I was at a church, and I got really, really, really bad sick. Tithe paying member. And sometimes you got to quantify being a tithe paying member, because if you're not a tithe paying member, your name ain't on the roll. But I was a tithe paying member, so my name was on the roll. Not one phone call.
Wow, wow.
Not one phone call, not one email, not one knock on the door, not one not one plate of fried chicken, nothing. two
That's a
years.
horrible indictment. Horrible indictment.
Big church, giant
Horrible,
church, name on the
horrible.
roll. And we miss people because we don't have that care team. We got to reinstitute some things of how do we get back connected with the people and meet people where they are. It's like stopping working out for a couple of years. It's hard to get back in it. I remember I
Mm.
was laying here too watching TV and been like, "Ooh, I ain't been to church in a physical building in a long time." Like, oh, it feel good to lay here and watch TV though, boy, under this blanket. I can wave my hands to God like this in the bed. Tamika, get your behind up and go to church. And it was something that, because it was that challenge. But I think that
Yeah.
we have to, with the church, we got to shift some things. And I believe that we need teams available to be in the war room, having conversations about how do we reconnect with the folks that we haven't seen, so that we can at least tell them, either join us here on Sunday. Did you see the service? We love to have you, or getting them back to our buildings, because otherwise we're not going to survive.
Doc, this has been an absolutely amazing hour, and I mean that, and I'm so grateful. On one hand, I appreciate my daughter, Madam Producer, for turning me on to you, and on the other hand, I'm a little bit upset that it took her 2 years to do this. So, but she and I, we'll work through that. Uh, I'm just grateful to have this mode change to get past, what has been tough. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Madam Producer?
Yes, yes, I am. Again, thank you so much, Dr. T, for being here. Yes,
Thank
love
you,
you.
thank you, thank
And I
you.
just piggyback on what she's saying. All these things that we need to do to reach out to one another. To me, it boils down to love. We gotta, whatever way we need to love on folks, we got to do that there. You know what I'm saying?
It's the
And
bottom
with that
line.
being said, I want to thank all of our wonderful viewers today. Auntie Charlene was on, and she said thank you. She was so appreciative to you, Dr. T, for those tips that you gave us. Toya Williams was on. My dear brother Curtis Walker came through today. Hey, Curtis, we're so glad that you were part of the show today. And then Curtis Dean. Curtis Dean, he is our one of the coaches here over here at Dialogue with Dozy. And we just want to let you know that we love you, Coach Curtis. We're glad that you weren't here today because we got Dr. T, but we're glad that you're resting as well. We love you so much. And thank you, everybody in Dozyland.
Thank you, sis. Dr. T,
Thank you
you
for
have
having me.
any closing comments? Now my challenge is how do I not bother you every two months and ask you to come? Okay, I'll work through that.
I would love to come on. And anytime you'll have me, Mr. Dozy, I'm willing to come on. Anytime.
Bless you, bless you. We have a great a great array of co-hosts. Well, my brother's a co-host. We have a great array of hosts that come on with us. So we got to bring you on when we got some of those great. My cousin Janice, who works with us, she would be glad to just commute with you. So to conversate with you. We're gonna do that. Dr. T, are there any closing tidbits that you can give us to be more successful in 2023?
I like to end by saying this. I heard this quote years ago, and I have had it on my cell phone for a long time. I want you to start your day every single day by asking yourself, who or what do you want to impact? And at the end of the day, just ask yourself, was it enough?
Wow.
That's it.
Wow. Thank you, Doc. That's amazing. Amazing. You have another. You have a fan in the house that's just waving their head at everything you're saying today. Thank you so much, Dr. T. Thank you. We speak a blessed, a powerful, and a service-filled year 2023 over you and those that you mentor. And again, just we thank God that you came by our way. And we didn't get too deep into the preachy preach tonight, but there's going to be a time that we're going to do that. It's going to be just
I'm
that show.
ready. I'm ready. And thank you so much for having me on the show. It has been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you tonight. And I'm looking forward to being on your show again.
Bless you, Doc. To those of you, Madam Producer already addressed you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you next week. KB will be back with us. And we're looking forward to having you. We speak the same thing. We speak a blessed, AB, this is for you too, bro. We speak a blessed, transformative, trending upward, positive, spiritual growth filled year and a greater connection with the Savior and a greater productivity to the people in whom the Savior has sent you out to be a blessing to. That's it. Dialogue with Dozy. We love you. Happy New Year.